evening, everyone. The voice of authority, diving in. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's the City Council regular meeting for Sammamish at 6:30 on Tuesday, November 18th. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Mayor Karen Howe.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Amy Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Kaylee Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Councilmember Sid Gupta.
Here.
Councilmember Roshino Farrell.
Roshini, you're on mute.
Roshini, can you say hi? Oh. You're not?
Are you going to say here? I wonder if she can hear me.
You're unmuted, Councilmember O'Farrell, but we can't hear you. Okay.
Okay, she's texting.
Not a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she's here
While we attempt to get Councilmember O'Farrell online, if we could have Councilmember Treen lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if those of you who are able to please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And if Councilmember Gupta could help us with the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded? Oh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We will move now to public comment. So we will start with people in the room and we'll migrate to those online. For those that have signed up, that is something I do want to point out too, is that we do have public hearings today as well. So this is our general comment sheet. If you've signed up for the wrong thing, don't worry about it. We'll get it figured out. So just let us know. So James Eastman, you are up first for general comment.
James Eastman, East Lake Sammamish Parkway. Yeah, I wanted to comment on the sidewalk mobility plan that's back on the agenda. I mentioned before I own property that touches basically Blackwell Elementary all the way down to the East Lake Sammamish Trail. Mentioned the Emerald Necklace connection as possible through my property, as well as a joint use path, almost a timber line all the way down to the trail. And I know we bag on Redmond a lot, but you guys have heard all my stories about biking to the movies and to light rail now even. I've sent my kids all the way to Bellevue Square. They just ride their bikes, jump on light rail and go from there. So it's huge. And like when you go through Redmond, like down Redmond Way, like how many bikers do you see? Zero. It's won all sorts of awards for Bike Capital of the World type awards. I think they even have a sign that says that. It's like, well, where are all the bikes? Well, the bikes are on parallel spines. Now there's two of them, one through Marymore along the river, and then this new one right underneath light rail. So clearly they have a well planned out system with these parallel spines that are actually not along their main roads. And our new plan seems to be, I even heard in the last meeting that this is arterial centric. I'm thinking, like, really, when I pull out, like, on a 228th, like, I can scan for pedestrians, like, walking, when I'm having to make a turn, but when I'm having to scan for bicycles, like, riding down a sidewalk, like, that's really difficult. And there's a lot of unanswered questions in that meeting as far as, is it in a parks plan, or is it in this plan for bikes? Like, I want to do the Emerald Necklace Trail all the way through to about Timberline and then drop down with a joint use path for bikes at 10% grade so people can get up to the plateau. Where does that fall? Is that parks plan or public works? Nowhere does it say in this new plan, like, where that goes. We haven't even had that discussion, so I just don't think this plan is ready. The last one from 2005, Trails, Bikeways, Path Plans, that was a great plan. It was all encompassing, but maybe a little bit too big. But to throw 10 projects on this north-south, basically the 228th corridor without considering other spines, and I know where some are, that would make a much better system similar to Redmond's. I think that would be the way to go. So I do not support passing this quite yet. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to take a point of privilege and just explain to the room, because there's so many scouts here, that typically when people do public comment, we as a council sit here and listen, but we don't respond. So it may look weird because it can sound like we should have like a dialogue at this point. But what we're doing is taking notes, paying attention to what people are saying, and then as appropriate, we're able to get back to them later because we have their names here on this sheet of paper. So I just wanted to explain kind of how that looks. It does look kind of weird. The next person is Darcy, please.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Darcy Donovan. I'm the elected president of Local 1425, and I am here tonight to ask that you do not repeal the utility tax. Earlier this year, the council went through months of presentations, meetings, and deliberation on what passing a utility tax would mean to the city. It is one of the few tools available to generate the revenues needed to continue providing programs and services that the community strongly supports. Please keep the utility tax to protect the city's employees that provide those services. As you recall from the presentations, the presentations to City Council on February 18th, March 4th, and March 18th, that without the utility tax, the city faces an imminent budget crisis and will be required to eliminate programs and reduce level of services. I have printed out and will provide as part of the record a slide from the presentation that shows the programs and services that will be reduced and cut. Here's a few examples of the services that would likely need to be reduced. Street maintenance, including snow and ice removal, inspection services, park maintenance, code enforcement. And here are a few programs and services that will likely need to be eliminated. Park and community events, like the 4th on the Plateau, human services, sustainability initiatives, communication, park acquisitions and development, passport services, and summer lifeguards. What's most important to remember is that each of these programs and services are staffed by hardworking employees, many of who have served the city for years. It is if the utility tax is repealed, you're not only considering taking services away from the community, but taking away from the real people and their families. One of the budget principles set by this city council was to hold staff harmless in the budget decisions. In part, it is that principle that guides you to adopting the utility tax in the first place. I recognize that the election represents a political shift for the city, but repealing the utility tax would be a break to the promise to the community and punishing the staff who serve it. Please do not play politics with our jobs. Keep the utility tax and the programs and the jobs it supports. Vote no to repeal the utility tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Maureen.
My name is Maureen Santonia. I live near Pine Lake. We've lived up here for like 45 years. Anyway, I just had a question about the food stand on 228th across from the Brown Bear Car Wash that's been there in the evenings. I just wondered if permits are required, if more should be coming, what to expect on the whole food truck thing out there. So if someone can get back to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather.
Heather Murphy-Rains, 20-year resident, and I'm here tonight to address two serious matters that have deeply damaged public trust. Tonight I ask for acknowledgement and accountability. During the election, several council members and public figures chose to weaponize the claim that Save Our Sammamish SOS was under investigation. These statements were pushed across social media, repeated in public forums, and amplified with seeming motivation to influence public perception against your own constituents. Well, the Public Disclosure Commission has completed its review and found no violations, none. SOS was cleared, dismissed, vindicated. So let's call this what this was, a politically motivated distortion used to smear a community group during an election. The accusations were unsubstantiated, and when elected officials circulate claims like this, it corrodes confidence in fair elections. Council members Pam Stewart, Amy Lamb, and others who elevated these claims, including the spouse of a council member, should publicly correct the record. You owe this community accuracy, you owe SOS an apology, and Pam Stewart, you owe the city an explanation for why you felt it appropriate to publicly label a group of residents as, quote, violators before any factual findings. This community expects elected officials to uphold due process, to avoid branding people as guilty before an investigation concludes, and to exercise a higher level of caution and integrity when referencing ongoing regulatory reviews. This is about ethics, fairness, and respect for the public you serve. Secondly, let's discuss the repeal placed on tonight's agenda. This lame duck council sits before me on its way out while attempting to dismantle the very revenue structure it planned to rely on while spending aggressively all year. Residents watched you approve consultant contracts, developer incentives, and a bloated town center study process, together costing millions, all while siphoning park fund dollars intended to protect forests, critical areas, and lake access. And suddenly now you claim that repealing the utility tax gives flexibility to the incoming council. This maneuver places the new council in a fiscal chokehold before they even take office. They inherit your bills, the depleted funds, the consultant costs, the incentives that you obligated, yet you propose eliminating the very tool you use to justify your own spending, which garners flexibility. Rather than flexibility, it's financial encumbrance, masquerading as governance. This pattern, heavy spending, fund shifting, feasibility studies now, followed by last-minute repeal of revenue, is widely viewed as a classic lame duck tactic. It forces the incoming council to either reinstate the tax and absorb the political blame or cut deeply into services and capital projects. Sammamish residents are highly educated and fully capable of recognizing when someone runs up the balance and then hands the bill to the next person walking through the door. Our city deserves transparency. Instead, it got overspending and last-minute reversals. Our city deserved honesty. Instead, it got accusations and political theater. Our city deserves stewardship. Instead, it got a council clearing its desk by dumping consequences on our newly elected leaders.
Bo?
Good evening, council members. I'm Bo Rains, a long 20-plus year resident of Sammamish. I'd like to speak tonight on the timing of the action by the council to repeal the utility tax, albeit regressive utility tax. Repealing a major revenue measure during a lame duck session is unusual and irresponsible. It removes options from the new council before they can even take office. The people can see the games you're playing with their city. This repeal is being framed as to enable the new council to advance their own ideas for fiscal sustainability and not be bound by prior council, but the reality is the opposite. Taking revenue off the table limits their choices and sets them up for failure. It ignores all the efforts of the residents who participated in the task force earlier this year. It ignores the effort of the staff to prepare prior budget projections. Its introduction seems rushed and lacking in planning as a one-day prior agenda revision. Have you partnered with your staff for the financial analysis of this, or was this resolution pushed forward without any input from the staff? How did this resolution make its way in front of the council? If the utility tax was necessary when you passed it, what's changed? The circumstances, or if circumstances are the same, this repeal is purely political, not fiscal stewardship. Repealing the tax in the final moments of this current council just burned up the time for anyone to come up with a solution. The utility tax didn't solve all of our city's looming fiscal insolvency, but it did delay it some. Repealing the tax now is if you abdicated your responsibilities back in March when you originally voted for this tax. Is this what you want your time on this council to be known for? Making tough decisions and then changing your mind to strengthen your future political aspirations at the cost of residents? Please live up to your responsibilities as council members. Represent the people and stop making major policy reversals in your final weeks. This repeal may be legal, but it's not in the spirit of good governance or democratic accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody that wanted to say something that didn't get a chance to sign up in the room? If not, we will go to online.
Those who have pre-registered to provide online comment, please raise your hand if you'd like to give comment at this time. Okay, it looks like no online comment at this time.
No online?
No.
Very good. We will move on now to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The consent calendar is approved. And we will move now to presentations and proclamations. So there is a proclamation for Small Business Saturday, which I'm going to be handing to Deputy Mayor Lamb.
This is a proclamation for Small Business Saturday, whereas Saturday, November 29, 2025 marks Small Business Saturday, a day dedicated to celebrating and supporting small businesses for their vital contributions to local economies, and whereas the City of Sammamish celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our community and economy, and whereas, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 99.9% of businesses across the U.S. are small businesses, and there are over 33.2 million small businesses currently operating in the country that have added nearly 2/3 of new jobs to the economy over the last 2 decades. And whereas the City of Sammamish recognizes the importance of shopping local by encouraging our community to support the unique businesses that help define Sammamish's spirit, and whereas advocacy groups, public organizations, and businesses across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, celebrating the vital role of small businesses in job creation, local investment, and community vibrancy. And now, therefore, Karen Howe, Mayor of Sammamish, on behalf of Sammamish City Council, do hereby proclaim November 29, 2025 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the CERT recognition with Mark Baird and Lacey Lewis. And I'm hoping that you'll describe what CERT is to the room.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. This evening we have with us a number of community members who recently completed CERT training with the City of Sammamish. And tonight we're here to recognize them for the effort they put into it and their accomplishment. Also with me tonight is Lacey Lewis, who is our Emergency Management Coordinator, and I'm going to turn it over to her. Well, she will answer that question and share a little bit about the training commitment that they just went through.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, so CERT for the acronym stands for Community Emergency Response Team. It is a national program that is recognized and even at the federal level. So anyone can do CERT, layperson, people that are first responders, whoever wants to do it can do it. And it basically educates and equips people to learn how to care for themselves and their families and their neighbors. So we do 8 weeks of coursework, including fire suppression, 2 courses about medical help, and then it culminates with a final drill. That drill was 2 Saturdays ago, and we got to partner with other communities, Renton, Issaquah, Duval, and it is a full-scale drill of an event, and you get to test all of the things that you learned, and it's very fun. I have to say, I got to do it with this group, so really excited to recognize them before you all, and yeah, hoping to get to do it more in the future. Okay, yes, I also want to recognize Don Ethington. He is our instructor. He has helped me revive this program that we haven't seen in a few years, and so he's an incredible instructor, and it's been really great to get to work with him. Did I get to the picture? We would love to get a picture of our group, if y'all want to come up to the front.
If that would be great. I'm hoping you introduce everybody as well, so that we know who everybody is.
Okay, I'm gonna have to pick up my microphone. Okay, happy to do so. I'll feel like Bob Barker. So we have Melissa Light. We have Nicole Champeau. Andrei Brendiev. We have Uma Coimbatore. We have Anna Prashanth. Jen Ash. We have Ashley Thompson. Shalina Sequeira. And then here is Don, and then I also want to highlight Barry. He was super helpful with all of our radio instructions and stuff. So he came and helped Don as well.
Well, I want to thank these residents for being willing to help. Yes, for being willing to help residents in time of need. So this is extraordinarily helpful. Oh, I'm going to jump in, absolutely. And so now we're going to go right into an emergency management program update.
And we are back again. We thought that as long as we had the CERT individuals here, it was a great time to give a little update on emergency management and what we've been doing over the course of the year. And if you'll bear with me momentarily while we log on, we'll begin. Perfect.
While I'm getting this ready, I also forgot to mention that we had 4 other CERT graduates that were not here. So I'm not going to remember all 4 of their names, but I at least want to mention that there were 4 more. Okay. Can you send it to me on Teams? The Zoom link? Cool. We're almost there.
I will add, while we're just about there, that we have cert supplies available for another session, and so we are looking at a time next year to advertise for and hold another training.
Yeah, it's just.
While they're bringing up the presentation, Mark, I was curious, is there a way that people can maintain their certification? Because I worry about just shelf life of information and just trying to keep those skills current. Is there like a catch-up class that people can take, or do they take it again, or do they all do the online version, or?
I can answer that. Go ahead. I'm happy to answer while I'm figuring this out. So like Uma, for example, one of our recent graduates, she took cert a really long time ago through her job. And so you don't have to live in the jurisdiction that it has a cert class. Like, for example, like there's a shorter winter one in Issaquah in February. So if people found a cert class wherever they wanted to go to one, they can. They can also participate in any of the final drills, which is a great way to just practice. I plan on going to as many drills as I can because they're super fun and they really test. They serve as that, final exam. And then there are also advanced cert classes. And then on top of advanced cert, there is other just classes that we encourage attendees to take, like Stop the Bleed, like CPR. Okay. So did I hit all the? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah. Okay, let's get all these great things out of the way. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for your patience. Technology, right? Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Like Mark had said, my name is Lacey Lewis. I'm actually a supervising management analyst for admin services with the city, but also as one of my roles, serve as the emergency management coordinator. We have some great stuff that we're going to get to update you on that we've worked on this year. I first just want to give a quick recap. So last year we used EMPG funds to hire a consultant to do an assessment of our current emergency management program. And then if you recall last summer, they got to present their report and their recommendations to you. So I'm going to be highlighting those recommendations because along with your direction, we were able then to use them to guide our work plan items. And the three categories are going to be operational procedures, technological integrations, and then of course, training and communication. So under operational highlights, one of the first things that staff did was designate an EM coordinator. And I have the pleasure of serving in that role for this past year. So then from that, I got right to work. So I coordinated our after action work groups right after the bomb cyclone, just making sure that we compiled all of the great information that we learned from that experience. And then from that, was able to work on some of the items listed here. So for example, we identified an alternate EOC location because we had such great use of City Hall as the warming center. We did learn that we needed to find an alternate EOC location. So we were able to do that. We did things like completed inventory of all our EOC supplies. We also started the Emergency Management Advisory Group, which is a group of community partners that we wanted to get together to streamline and make our planning efforts more community-centered. So we got to meet 3 times this past year and have plans to meet quarterly next year. We invited everyone we could think of, and then if I didn't know someone, because I moved here from Texas a couple years ago, I invited them to then pass along that invitation. So we've only grown more in that group, and it's been incredible to meet local leaders, school officials, all kinds of groups. So I'm really excited about continuing that group next year. And then lastly, I just want to highlight that we worked with another consultant through more EMPG funds that we had to update our mass care emergency support function. And so we were able to identify sheltering capabilities and looking at creating a comfort center playbook, a document that anybody from the city could pick up in an emergency and get that going. Some tech items that we were able to work on is that we created a central location for all of our PCERN radios. We were able to test them. We were able to show staff how to use them and then distributed them across city leadership. These radios are going to be helpful if power and comms are down again in the future. We have them and we can communicate with each other. I'm pretty sure Scott even took it to Seattle to test it. And then we had some of our maintenance guys drive around in trucks with the radio. So we did lots of testing to make sure they work throughout the region, and they connect us to regional partners like King County, Sammamish PD, and some others. And then I also just want to highlight that we're in process of working with GIS staff to make sure our map books are all updated, and then hopefully getting to build some new layers within Esri. That'll just help us with reporting, will help us in our EOC next time an event happens. My favorite topic, training and communication. We increased community engagement. I know I saw a lot of you while I was out at the farmers markets, events, and then any fair or any community event that was adjacent to emergency management, I tried to attend. So got to, meet some great members of the Rotary Club, got to do partner with Eastside Fire and Rescue on some presentations around the community, and so that was a lot of fun. We also partnered with our comms manager to create a content calendar to ensure that we're highlighting seasonal topics every month that we then could push out either through social media or the newsletter. And then, lastly, I just want to point out that there's been a regional group that started through the city of Redmond. They just reached out to people in cities in the region, and it's all the emergency managers and the sustainability managers from cities, and we come together because there's a lot of overlap between climate things and emergency management. So those meetings have been really great. Those started this year as well. And then lastly, we restarted the CERT program, which you saw tonight, which was really exciting. Last item that we were excited to tell you about. One of our training goals this year was to hold an EOC tabletop because we had to find that alternate location. So we really wanted to have a tabletop in that new location. And then we also wanted to invite external partners. So everyone listed here got to attend. We then had the emergency manager from Eastside Fire and Rescue facilitate the tabletop exercise. So as a big group, we got to really walk through another kind of bomb cyclone scenario, and we got to learn from each other with the external partners, and then even in our internal groups that we were talking to each other and just kind of reminding each other what our roles and responsibilities are in an emergency. I forgot to mention that before the tabletop, I partnered with one of our consultants to develop an EOC training that then staff can use, in perpetuity. We recorded it. It is Sammamish specific. There's a lot of EOC trainings out there, and we wanted a Sammamish specific one that looked at what our roles were, how we wanted to operate one, and then had this great tabletop exercise that went really well. Thank you again. I'm super excited about all that we've gotten done and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Council, do you have questions? Deputy Mayor Lamb?
What were some of the learnings for the next cyclone? You talked about the bomb cyclone. Like, what are some of the things that came out of this event that you had?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a number of things, and I think Lacey mentioned at least this one as part of it. We learned that it's difficult, if not impossible, for us to utilize City Hall that would have generator power for the warming and charging center that we did and operate in the area with an EOC. In fact, the room that we typically would use as an EOC were full of community members that were staying warm and charging their devices. And so not only did we identify that we needed to have an alternative site, but we needed to make sure that we could set it up and make those adjustments. Secondarily, we learned that because we don't know when these events occur, we needed to have anybody be able to set up a warming and charging center within City Hall. And we found that not everybody has the large size coffee pots for a large crowd. And so many people didn't even know how to make the coffee. And so we went about putting together some binders that went through all of the information that we would need and the supplies that we would need to set up and run those and make sure that those are available for whatever staff is available to begin to start those processes. We also learned that even though some cell phones were working with that situation, we had several people in key positions that had a very difficult or intermittent time using cell phone communication. And that's where we really kicked in and started to take a look at how we could use the PSER and radios. Lacey's correct. We, on the leadership team, went both, east, west, south, and north to check on the reception. I live up north, and so I took a radio to Lake Stevens. The city manager took a radio into Seattle. We had people down here at the MOC to make sure that we could communicate together if we had that and the emergency happened at an inopportune time. We also learned that we needed to have physically updated maps available, particularly for the staff that are out and about. And that was the project that you heard Lacey talk about that we needed to make sure to get together. And that's an ongoing process.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, the bomb cyclone last year was the first time our city had activated an EOC in its history. So we had a lot of great learning opportunities. So yeah, just even little things like the coffee machine. We wrote SOPs, so we now have a binder full of SOPs. We also looked at just ways to track things. So we had never done a preliminary damage assessment, most of us, because we hadn't activated the EOC here. So really got to dive deep into that process at the federal level. And then because of that, then we're able to create things in our software tools that we can maybe automate, coding for financial things, stuff like that.
I'll also add that we learned the importance of the interaction with external partners. And that's one of the key reasons as we created a scenario to do our tabletop exercise. Beyond using the alternative EOC, we had so many community partners come in to be part of that conversation, because that, along with the advisory group that's been put together, has really created better relationships that we can rely on when we need to communicate back and forth.
So EOC is Emergency Operations Center, and then SOP would be Standard Operating Procedures, just to kind of help ground people just for a second or two.
I appreciate that.
Councilmember Howe, I just wanted to, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mayor Howe, Roisin O'Farrell has her hand up.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Yes, hi, thank you. Lacey, I know this summer we had an emergency management event at the YMCA that they had done in conjunction with emergency services and the city. Do we plans to do another one of that nature next year? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Great question. So throughout this past year, I've just had many opportunities to get to know people that have been doing this work in Sammamish for years and years. So getting to compile all of that great information, we used to have a really big safety fair. And so instead of doing, we have community groups that do kind of the smaller ones, but the vision for next year is for all of us to be under one tent and to kind of have a major, safety fair. So that is my hope. That is my goal. And then we can, spend a little more time planning so that we can push it out earlier, and then maybe make it more of a consistent thing. Like everyone knows, September, there's that preparedness fair. That is the goal.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
If there are no other questions, I had a couple. Is Conference Center the thing that we'd set up here in Chambers where people could come in, charge things? Okay. I just
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
make sure that I understood what you meant by Conference Center.
Yeah, and that's a term that we've started to use because it is different than shelter. You know, shelter is a much more complex process, and we want to, you know, that's more like providing housing. But yeah, comfort center, warming center is that term that we like to use for that kind of. We want to provide power for you, maybe some snacks. So yeah, absolutely.
So for that next level, which is shelter care, is there a different level of CERT training that takes you to that level?
So to speak about CERT real quick, CERT is really, the scope of work for CERT members is, you know, is my family okay and is my neighbor okay? And then beyond that, if they can help, you know, with the medical tent or something on this kind of large scale event, we don't cover sheltering in the CERT coursework or to set up, because a lot of times it is outside organizations that come in and set that up, like Red Cross, like King County, and that's what would happen. You know, our role would be to do what we can until, you know, those with better infrastructure could then come and help us stand that up.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation if there's no other questions. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thanks again. We'll move on to new business. So we'll be discussing the Consultancy Services Contract Award Streetlight Enhancement Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council. For the record, I'm Audrey Sarcy. I'm the Public Works Director for the city. We are asking for your approval to authorize a contract with Transpo Group to work on our streetlight enhancement plan. This is a first for the city. This would be incorporated into our right-of-way code and street standards update, and consists of three main components. One is it would greatly assist the city in its asset management of about 600 streetlights that we own. It's also conducting an inventory of lighting levels as we advance to more multimodal. And the third component of this plan is preparing a conversion plan from HPS, high pressure sodium lighting, to LED or light emitting diodes lighting, so that we have a conversion plan for the city going forward to meet some of our climate action and sustainability goals. The contract is approximately $156,000. That is fully funded by the 340 Transportation Capital Fund, as this will fund construction projects in the future as well. Happy to take any questions.
Other questions, Council?
I was like, can you say HPS? What was that? You said we're just converting to LED, like the more
Yes.
energy efficient?
Yeah. From the kind of dim, orangey,
like the
high pressure
yellowy,
sodium
that you can't actually see.
to LED.
Yeah. Not that I wanted you to repeat it, but I kind of did. So thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Do we know how many streetlights there are that HOAs are responsible for?
I believe there's about 1,100 streetlights in the city. I don't know the exact ownership
Yeah,
for HOAs
okay.
versus city, but we have about 600 that we maintain on our trails.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so since we have a number of young people here, and I know that most of our young people are very concerned about the environment, why would we spend money to convert from the current lights that we have to LEDs?
Great question. To save the city and get some money, so that's a great thing. But really, the primary goal is to save electricity, to reduce the amount of electricity that we're utilizing to produce a different lighting on the roadway.
Do we have some numbers about how much electricity we'll save and how much money we'll save over the life of these light bulbs?
I don't, but we could certainly bring back that information.
That would be awesome, because for those who don't know, LED light bulbs offer several advantages. One is that they use significantly less energy. They tend to last a whole lot longer, so there's less waste and there's less maintenance, which is also a cost saver. And because they use less electricity, they will also lower the city's costs. So while there is an upfront cost for us to create this plan and to go execute the plan over probably a relatively short period of time, although I think it's important that we know what that timeline is, we should be able to make that much back and then some in terms of what we save. So I'm pretty excited about this. Thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor to authorize the city manager to extend the contract?
So moved.
Okay, I'll be more explicit. I move that we authorize the city manager to engage in a contract with a total cost of $156,900 for streetlight enhancement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you want to speak to the motion?
I think I already did.
I think you did too. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll now move to repeal ordinance 02023-560, establishing a general fund strategic reserve allocation and policies. And this will be with Vicki Carlson.
Good evening, Council. Vicki Carlson, Finance Director for the record. So tonight on the agenda you have you have financial policies before you to be adopted via resolution that does include the strategic reserve for the general fund. So once those are adopted, this ordinance is no longer needed. So we're asking to repeal this one so all the financial policies are in one document and one approved ordinance resolution.
Are there any questions, Council? Is there a motion to repeal the ordinance?
I can say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said I can say it if you want me
Okay.
to. Yeah. So I move that we repeal ordinance 2023-560 and allow the general fund strategic reserve allocation and policies to be established as one of the overall city financial policies adopted by resolution rather than by separate ordinance.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Do you want to speak to your motion?
No, I trust Vicki.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next item, which is repeal ordinance 02025-580, enacting a utility tax and enacting a natural or manufactured gas use tax. And in this case, there is no presentation. So how did this land on our agenda? Part of it was me. I put it on the agenda. I felt it was important, given what had happened in the last election, to give the gift of a clean slate to the incoming new folks that would be able then to decide how they wanted to manage things going forward. But I have to say that I'm a bit on the fence. So I want to hear from each of the council members their thoughts on the pros and cons of this, because there are pros and cons. I'll start with Councilmember Treen. I believe.
Actually, Mayor, first there should be a motion and a second to put the item on the table for discussion.
Oh, very good. Thank you for that. I move to amend the 2025-2026 mid-biennium budget to remove the utility tax revenue from ordinance 02023-580. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, not to confuse things, but we're not ready for the budget yet, so I think
I'm ahead.
You're a little bit ahead. It would be item number 20 that's the motion I think you wanted to make under new business. It's repealing ordinance 0205-580.
580, enacting a utility tax and a natural gas use tax.
Correct.
Oh, it's different? It's the same one.
You're moving to repeal that prior ordinance.
Yeah, right now, because I'm all trying to figure out what just happened.
I motion to repeal ordinance 02025-580, enacting a utility tax and enacting a natural or manufactured gas use tax.
It's actually better than you do anyway. Second. Okay. Apologies for that. So what I'm interested in is hearing from each of the council members about their thoughts on the pros and the cons of this, because there are pros and cons. The idea of being able to start off with a clean slate and being able to do the policies that you want to is very appealing. And voters clearly really hate the utility tax. And I understand that because we all hate the utility tax. All of us wish that we didn't have to do it. So if I could hear from Councilmember Treen, I know in the past, and please correct me if I am wrong, I believe you were the one vote that voted against this. So if you have a comment at this time to help clarify your position now, because it may have changed, that would be great. And then we'll go, and I'm hoping to hear from everybody.
So you're looking for my input on whether we should repeal the tax?
That would be great.
Well, I didn't vote for the tax in the first place, but my reason for not voting for the tax is mainly because of the 6%, the number. And then the other reason I didn't vote for it was because when we were in the budget and the recommendation from the task force was to cut the budget by $1 million, my understanding of what the task force intent was to cut the budget. And so we, over a 3-year period of time, in the amount of about $1 million, which would be really difficult to do, but could be done and wasn't done. And so at that point, because the first task that was presented wasn't actually accomplished, it made no sense to me to then tax, because we hadn't done, in my opinion, we hadn't done our work. And so I didn't want to go to the taxpayers and then say, hey, we're going to now tax you at 6% on all your utilities, because we didn't actually present a budget at that time that actually cut our, cut the budget. So that was the reason why. So if you were to repeal this now, though, based on the current budget, that doesn't seem like a wise thing to do at this time. So unless Vicky were to tell me, no, we could cut projected $11 million from our budget tonight, or if you guys were to delay the decision, I've not seen enough evidence that would say that the current budget, it would be unwise to repeal this at this time. That's where I currently sit. But again, there's a lot of information that's not been presented to me as well. So thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you, Councilmember Treen. I see Councilmember O'Farrell's hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sorry, and I'll just lower my hand before I forget. I'm against repealing the utility tax. I also dislike the utility tax. Personally, my electric bill, as of the beginning of next year, will probably go up about $10 a month. So I'm not in favor of that personally. However, we spent a lot of time on this as a council. Department heads did come before us and did offer and did, as far as I recollect, did carry out cuts to each individual department. So we did have cuts done to our budget. It was recommended by the Fiscal Sustainability Task Force. The council already have had this discussion. We believe, and I thought as a body we believed, that we need to pay for ongoing expenses with ongoing revenues. And in the past, our budget has worked partly because the city and previous entities didn't fill all of our staffing needs, and we had vacant positions for years, and that was one of the reasons our budget was working. Also, we hadn't experienced the astronomical inflationary period that we experienced after COVID and continue to now. I also want to say that it's the right thing for our city to do to kind of reduce the stress on our city. And I also don't want to see our level of service reduced in order to balance our budget. And I don't think that's what our community want us to do either. So I'm not in favour of withdrawing the utility tax as much as I dislike it personally. I just don't think the city right now in this immediate term has many options in front of it. We may do down the road, and maybe that would be appropriate then to appeal the utility tax. I know people don't have much faith in when the tax is brought into being, it's rarely repealed, and I understand that fear. But maybe this is something in maybe 5-10 years we look and we repeal it again. But I just don't think that the city has many options. So I reluctantly am in favour of keeping the utility tax.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Farrell. Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. So as it's written in the ordinance, that repealing this, the utility tax would enable the new council to advance their own ideas for fiscal sustainability and not be bound by a prior council. And I absolutely support this because, as we heard during the election, the new council members have a lot of ideas and they don't support the utility tax, and they should not be bound by a decision that this current council has made. And I agree. And it was a contentious issue then, and it still remains a contentious issue. But I believe that if they have new ideas and they want to bring it forward, they should be allowed to. And if they recognize that the utility tax is needed, they can come back the first of the year and re-implement it. So they have every option on the table. And I just wanted to address what Councilmember Treen saying that we haven't made the cuts necessary. We made a $4 million cut in 2024. We reduced the biennium budget by $8.9 million. So we have made those cuts. And so I just wanted to point out that inaccuracy. I also want to point out the inaccuracy and the false information that continues to be rampant on social media and by public commenters that we are spending aggressively. We have not. We, as I just said, reduced our biennium budget by $8.9 million. And we have not given incentives to developers. We have not even begun any conversations about town centers, so that is a complete fallacy. The $5 million that is in the Parks Fund remains in the Parks Fund, and we have not gifted $6 million to the developers for 6th Street. That street was moved, and we owe, and the city's paying for half of it, and the developer's paying half of it. So, you know, there's a lot of misinformation on social media regarding the fact that we have now, we're spending wildly, and somehow now we're trying to repeal the utility tax to make it difficult for the council members, the new incoming council members. And that is a complete fallacy. The new incoming council members will have the option to review the budget with Vicki and determine what cuts are necessary or maybe not. And they can re-implement the utility tax at any time. So I'm in full support of this to repeal this. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, this is so weird for so many reasons. I mean, I joined this council to not do stuff like this. I feel like it's the battle of like petty and pettier at this point. I do not support repealing this. We've worked on this so long. We've had how many, like countless staff hours, countless like residents for that, what was it, fiscal sustainability task force. We've just gone over and over this again. I think they can do what they want next year. I don't know why we would take all of this work. I think if anything kind of holding this city together has been city staff, and I just can't imagine doing this to them now. It just kind of further delays the inevitable, or further, it speeds up the inevitable of our budget crisis. And I was confused at this showing up on the agenda. Obviously, we have infighting in this city. Obviously, the council has infighting. This is just not something I can honestly feel good about repealing.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Councilmember Gupta.
Yeah, thank you. I have to admit, this is tough because, as other council members have said, we put a lot of work into this. There's a reason that this was the sole topic that we took on at our council retreat this year. We put a fiscal sustainability task force together that worked on it for a long time. I think there were very good reasons that this policy was put into place. But, the community also spoke pretty strongly that our vision was not the vision that they shared. I've heard all year about how our council has overspent, we are being irresponsible, and the solution is to cut. So, it's hard to say what the right answer is. I believe Sammamish runs a pretty tight ship. I think our general fund spend per capita is $859 compared to other cities. ISQA is, I think, like $1,300 per capita. So we're quite a bit lower than our neighbors. But if the community feels like the solution is to cut, then maybe we should give them that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I think it's really important. Government accounting is challenging. I don't know where Vicki is, but she should get a medal just for doing it because fund accounting can be very confusing. But at a very basic level, we think of it as we have two different types of spending. We have operation spending and we have capital spending. So when we build a road, that's a capital project. The stuff we do, paying most of our staff, keeping the lights on in City Hall, having a front desk to answer questions, being able to issue permits. So, somebody ran over our mailbox hut and we have to rebuild it, and we'll need a right-of-way permit for that. We'll need to be able to have someone to process those permits. All of those things are the operations, right? Making sure that we can literally keep the lights on and keep doing all of the basic things that a city needs to do. Public safety is part of the operation spend. So all of our fire and police spend, our emergency management spend, I call it the dog catcher, but there's a more appropriate name for that, right? But, all of those services are part of the operation spend. I believe that this current council, all 7 of us, did a really great job of trying to balance the needs of the community, our legal requirements, environmental sustainability, and fiscal sustainability in our current biennium budget. And when we made this decision in March to pass this tax, it wasn't easy. I mean, anytime we raise taxes, it never is. And I think Darcy got up here tonight, and I think she did an exemplary job of sharing what will need to be cut if we don't have an additional revenue stream. And I think she's completely correct. However, Councilmember Treen, Councilmember-elect Treen, Councilmember-elect Amato, and Councilmember-elect Boyer did all state very clearly, and I believe that they will be true to their word, that they believe that we can cut more in our budget and that it should be done and that they plan to do so. If they can find legitimate cuts that make sense, I will be fully supportive of those. The reason I don't want to move forward at this moment with the tax right now is because I don't want to preemptively tax our residents if a new council is going to come in and cut the budget. Then we don't need as much revenue. And it would be terrible if we taxed you and then we ended up having excess revenue. And we did hear clearly from the community that the people have spoken, that they didn't feel like we were listening, and that there was a vote for change. As a matter of fact, those who spoke tonight gave very strong public comment during this entire process that we haven't done our due diligence. We have not drilled into the data deep enough. We didn't make the necessary cuts, that we need to make true cuts to the budget before raising taxes. We need to serve our constituents and not raise the taxes. People in Sammamish are experiencing tax fatigue, and that many on a fixed income are being taxed out of their homes. It says that we have a spending problem and we need to start cutting the fat before we start a tax like this. I think Councilmember Boyer said, we need to go through the budget program by program, and some things may not survive. And I think we need to give him that opportunity. Councilmember-elect Amato said that diversifying our revenue is not the answer, that we have to live within our means, and we either have to raise taxes to fund our services or cut the services, and that we should ask the residents. And I think that's fair if he thinks that's the right thing to do. He said that we haven't asked the residents if they want to pay more or if they want to cut the services. And Councilmember-elect Treen said that as part of the Fiscal Sustainability Task Force, that they did not evaluate expenses or the impacts of the town center, and that we did not follow their recommendation of cutting the budget by $1 million from the 2022 levels, and stated that that needs to happen before we implement or enact any new taxes. I think that Councilmember Treen already spoke for himself, but he did say that he was against the tax and the administrative provisions because we hadn't made the necessary cuts, and that he felt there were things that could and should be cut. Why am I okay doing this? Well, because of the great work that our staff has done. We can enact this tax at any time. It won't be instantaneous, but it will be a lot faster. Back in March, when we started this process, there was a lot of work to be done to work with the utilities and get our policies in place. Those are in place. So if we do decide early next year that we still need additional revenue, we can enact this tax, and we'll lose a couple of months of revenue, but we'll still be able to make this happen. And I'm confident, actually, that when we get together and we convene as a new council after the first of the year, that we'll be able to come to a compromise. I'm optimistic that our new council members will be able to help us save money. Saving money is always a good thing. I hope that it's not at the expense of necessary and well-loved services, but I think that they will quickly find that it's not that easy to find $5.5 million a year. It's not money under the seat cushions. It's a big chunk of money, and that we do have far fewer staff members per resident than our neighboring cities. Our staff members already work really hard. Some of them, I would argue, do more than one job compared to some of their peers in other cities, and they work very, very hard. So I think it's going to be a really tough job to find ways to cut. But I do think it's worth having that conversation before things are just in place and we have to back them off. So I'm supportive of this if we can make sure that we put these discussions of what does the work plan look like, what are the priorities, and what things in the budget should we change for 2026. So our budget is only halfway over. Our budget's actually coming in looking a little bit better than expected. Our revenues are a little bit higher than we anticipated. A lot of the concerns that people brought up, all of those expenses, one, as Deputy Mayor said, they aren't true. We have not spent that money. And two, those are all capital expenditures and have nothing to do with the utility tax. It is important that as we move forward as a council, we all agree that ongoing expenses or operating expenses must be covered by ongoing revenues. You don't at home, hire a housekeeper and pay for it out of your savings. You only hire a housekeeper if you have the money to pay for it. So that's got to be a principle, hopefully, that we continue going forward. And for that reason, because I do want us to have all of the options on the table when we get together as a new council on January, I would say January 1, but hopefully we're not here on the 1st, January 5, I think it is, that we can have these great conversations and open to some new ideas and fresh thinking. And maybe we'll come up with something really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Stewart. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring this into the public view and to kind of tear it apart a bit. Because elections do have consequences. And it was pretty clear from the election that a change was desired, and that's fine. I completely understand that and support that. And I also think that the staff was kind of put on notice the moment that election was over, that things could drastically change for them and put them to some extent of concern, I would say, given the rhetoric that had occurred during the election. Now, it's also true that people say stuff during elections that they don't mean, that they're never going to do. that they had no intention of ever completing or acting on. And that's also very much a true thing. And so where I land on this, because I have been going back and forth myself, because actually if you asked me today if I was going to vote for the utility tax, I would do it again, because it's the only fiscally sound thing that gives you a glide path to where you can start to think about doing a Metropolitan Park District, which will fail the first time through. You need time so that you can do it again and bring it up again. Because if there is, in fact, tax fatigue, it will fail. So you're going to need that if you're going to try to do any kind of community center, because you need to tuck it into the community center, because that's the only way you're going to be able to afford it. And what I don't want to see happen is that you plow through the reserve fund or our operating budget and just sort of coast and kick the can down the road. Again, because we have money in the bank, but we're not a bank. This is money that's earmarked for projects that are important to the public. So I think it's going to be important going forward that the council really consider that right after the Pledge of Allegiance, you actually go through your budget and find out if you've taken hits to your budget, if people haven't done something to generate revenue for the city in short order, on a regular basis, a dashboard, if you will. And at the end of the day, though, I am who I am, and I'm a people person. I am not going to support this. I'm not going to support a repeal. It's the right thing to do for the city. It's the right thing going forward. And so with that, if there's no further discussion, I will take a vote. All those in favor to repeal, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. Thank you. So we are going to public hearings to consider a proposed docket request for the 2025-2026 Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Amendment process.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, David Pyle, Department of Community Development. So give us just a minute as we transition to the next part of the evening. With me this evening, I have Jackie Belisle, who's a management analyst in our department. She'll be doing a very brief presentation, and we'll then queue up an resolution for your consideration regarding the 2026 docket. So she will need to be promoted, and at which point she'll be able to share her screen, and then she'll be able to begin the presentation. Thank you.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Belisle. I am a management analyst with DCD, and tonight we'll be giving a presentation on the 2025-2026 docket request and staff recommendations. After the presentation, you will hold a public hearing and deliberate on whether the proposed request should be docketed. As a refresher, the docket is an annual process for considering text amendments to the city's comprehensive plan or development regulations or site-specific land use map amendments. Anyone is able to submit a docket request as long as it is in by the annual deadline of 5 p.m. on the first Monday in August. The first step in our docket review process is deciding which proposals should be put on the docket for consideration in the coming years. Any items that are set on the docket will go through the legislative review process where they will be fully considered and reviewed. If the City Council chooses to docket an item and add it to the work plan, staff will complete a more thorough review and return to Planning Commission and Council for further discussion and consideration. So tonight we are making the list of things to be worked on in the future and not reviewing each item in detail right now. Next, we will review the docket request received and the staff recommendation. So the first docket request was a text amendment to the town center plan, which was submitted by city staff. After further discussion, the city did decide to withdraw the request. When the request was prepared and submitted in August, the updates to the town center plan and the development regulations were expected to be completed by December 2025, but the project schedule changed. And the town center plan and updates and development regulation updates are now expected to be completed in 2026. So the timing of the docket request no longer aligns with the timing of the project. So we withdrew the request on October 8th. We may resubmit this docket request next year, but we will no longer be considering it for tonight. The next docket request is a site-specific land use map amendment for Building 120, which until recently was used as the Central Washington University campus. The property is located off of 228th, next to Eastlake High School, and was the Mars Hill Church for many years before the city bought it in 2015. The CWU began renting the building in 2017 and ended their lease this past summer. The city is proposing changing the future land use designation of this property from neighborhood residential to mixed use center, which would allow for the property to be rezoned through the zone reclassification process. So a rezone of this property would be consistent with the shopping center to the north and the town center development to the west and south. As a mixed use center, the former campus could be used for a wider range of purposes, such as civic, community service, cultural, community gathering space, recreational uses, and affordable or workforce housing. So the Title 24A of the Sammamish Municipal Code requires that all docket requests be analyzed based on specific criteria. So the criteria are how the request aligns with staff work plan items, if there is enough budget to complete the work, if there is staff availability to complete a full review of the request, and if the request is consistent with the city's current policies and priorities. So staff has completed an analysis based on those criteria. So we have answered no to the work plan alignment criteria because this item does not align with existing work plan items, but it could be added if directed by the council. For both budget and staff availability, we put limited. The majority of the work would be done in-house, but additional budget could be needed for limited consultant support if the current contracts are not enough. Staff would be available to work on this item, but timing of other work plan items might need to shift in order to accommodate the legislative review of this request. And in terms of policy and program consistency, this request is consistent with local, regional, and state policies and requirements. So for this reason, these reasons, staff recommends that this request be docketed, as the proposed change will provide more opportunities to continue community conversations and identify the best use for this site. So for next steps, should the request be docketed, the legislative review would likely occur in late 2026. And then I do have two recommended motions. The first is to recommend that the request be docketed as it is shown in the agenda packet. And then the second option would be if you would like to recommend amending the request in any way.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions? I see a resounding silence.
I believe the next step would be to open a public hearing on this item, which would then allow you to proceed with making a motion either under option 1 or 2 or whatever the council sees fit.
Okay. If there are no clarifying questions, then I will open the public hearing. And we will move to public comment. James
Eastman, Eastlake Sammamish Parkway. This docket process to me is an awesome process to bring things forward to City Council. I've been going to these meetings longer than Pam and Kent, I think. I think it's probably 8 years, maybe, since you guys have.
I think you and I are.
I precede you, but barely, Pam, just barely. Prior council. But, as long as I've been here, I think we've gone back and forth on some very contentious issues, as I've kind of had play out tonight. And it is a tough predicament to be in with somebody with an idea. He's trying to utilize this docket process. I think I had my docket brought forward. Well, I've had ideas long before then, but I think I actually brought a docket forward in 2023. Planning Commission put me in a letter. They think that in 2025 I should be added to the work plan. It's almost 2026. I'm not on the work plan yet, but I'm hopeful that I'll get there. But I'm stuck behind Town Center, which I don't have anything against. I'm not close to Town Center. I don't have a dog in that fight, but I have noticed that I'm stuck on the back burner until that's taken care of. And I've seen the controversy and the fallout that has caused, and I've seen what it's done to staff. They're stuck in the middle of a very contentious issue, and that's the issue. And these docket requests are chances to actually focus on something else and build something awesome. And I think now more than ever, wouldn't it be great if we had 7-0 votes for some of these docket requests and coming up with a great plan on what we can do with these properties. I would love that for my property. I'm a people person too, Karen. I'm also a creator. I love to just dream things up and think about things. And this planning commission, holy cow. I sit through and watch every one of their meetings, talk about some serious talent there. They're underutilized. They could take on a lot more and really come up with some awesome stuff and give some good input. So I'm all for this. I think we could really come up with something good. I think if we could limit 50% of staff's work to 7-0 votes of building momentum and giving them exciting stuff to work on and going and getting it done, I think that would just be huge for this city. So I'm for this. I'm also for mine. I'm in line too. So let's spend 50% of our time on some of this stuff and get 7-0 votes and make this a much happier place where we tap everyone's talents and abilities. Thank you.
I don't believe that there's any other public comment.
Let's go online.
For this particular hearing.
Those who have pre-registered online, please raise your hand if you'd like to give comment. I'm promoting Mary Wichter.
Thank you.
Good evening, council and public and people listening online or later. This is Mary Wichter. I've lived in Sammamish for 25 years, and I remember when it was the Mars Hill Church, and I remember when the city first decided that they were going to purchase the property. I believe, and I didn't look it up, but it was about a $12 or $12.1 million property that the city paid $6 million or $6.1 million for, something in there, about half. So it was a really great purchase. I think attempting to do what we tried with Central Washington University was good. I think that was thwarted a bit by COVID happening, but the building is a tremendous building. I know when I volunteered at elementary and middle schools, it was really hard to get a location to do anything. You just couldn't. Teachers had to allow you to use their rooms, which is really hard. It's very hard to find time for things. I know the East Lake Performing Arts Center, with the auditorium there, that's always full. Even the Seattle Symphony can barely get in there. It's just a great building to have in a really, really wonderful location. I believe they did a good job with stormwater because I've been watching that over the years. And since Eastside Catholic built and that building 120 built, the stormwater problems look like they're handled very well. I had also talked with the people at Central Washington University about the front grass area, and I had learned that when it was built, it had been compacted so that you could have other buildings or structures put on there. I know it was up for the $20 million for a park and ride location, which that money's been removed. But you could put a park and ride on it. You could put buildings on it for housing, building on it for other things. The existing building is quite lovely. There's been Sammamish events there where you go in and it's a gym and there's light coming through. There's pretty good parking. I think the parking is currently rented out to some of the Microsoft connector things, but I don't really know on that. But anyway, it's a wonderful building. I've submitted dockets before. It's hard to submit them. It's hard to get them in. I have some from 2019 that are in the work plan for this year, getting booted to next year. Maybe it will happen, but this one needs to happen. You've had a lot of people that have spoken for this project, and I think it really needs to get done. So let's docket it and let's try to get it done, put it in high priority so it can move forward.
Thank you.
Looks like that's all for online public comment.
Thank you. Do we close the hearing? Yep, that's what I was going to do. Okay, I'm closing the hearing. And we will move on now to if the council has any questions. And if not, then I'm looking for a recommendation that the request be docketed. Councilmember Gupta.
If there are no questions, I move to approve. So sorry. I move to approve Resolution R 2025-1122 as shown in Exhibit 1, adding consideration of a change to the future land use designation of Building 120 from neighborhood residential to mixed-use center to the city's legislative work plan.
Second.
Oh.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next public hearing, which is to consider 3 ordinances to adopt reference the 2025 6-year capital facilities plans for the Issaquah, Lake Washington, and Snoqualmie Valley school districts.
Thank you, Mayor. David Pyle, Department of Community Development. Again, with me, I have Jackie Belil, who is one of our management analysts, who will be providing a short presentation on this fun topic that we always look forward to doing every year about the same time. And what basically happens is we go through the process of reviewing information provided by the districts and that is used to set fees. We hold a hearing, we pass an ordinance that enables us to charge impact fees with development. Jackie will talk more about this and I'll pass it off to her.
Thank you. As David just said, so tonight we will hold a public hearing and consider 3 separate ordinances adopting by reference the 6-year capital facilities plan for the Issaquah, Lake Washington, and Snoqualmie Valley school districts. Each ordinance and capital facilities plan is included in your packet material. Prior to transmitting the capital facilities plan to the city, each district conducted its own public process, completed an environmental review, and issued a SEPA threshold determination of non-significance. Each capital facilities plan includes a summary of the district's current facility and student capacities, lists of future facility expansions, projected construction plans, 6-year financing plans, and the corresponding formula prescribed school impact fee for new single-family and multifamily housing units. Adoption by reference of the new capital facilities plans automatically updates the city's collected school impact fee by district in accordance with the codified formula established in SMC 2109-090D to reflect the cost of delivery of providing needed facilities and other capital improvements. The school impact fee formula was amended and adopted by City Council in 2021, Ordinance 2021-534, changing the discount factor applied from 50 to 75%. And the most notable thing for this year is that the Issaquah School District is not asking for any impact fees. The district's 6-year enrollment projections in Table 1 of their plan demonstrate that the district does not anticipate growth to occur over the 6-year planning period. So while the high school capacity needs remain significant, it is not related to anticipated growth in the 6-year period. So it is no longer eligible as a basis for impact fees. The Issaquah School District did ask that they sent us a memo detailing this year's fees, and they asked that it be included in the agenda packet so it can be viewed as Exhibit 7 of your packet. With that said, we are able to hold one public hearing as long as we have 3 separate motions, one for each ordinance, and I do have slides for the recommended language for each motion if needed. And then I believe we are also joined online by representatives from Lake Washington and Snoqualmie Valley. If there are any questions that we cannot answer, they can jump in. So we can take any questions, and if not, we can jump into the public hearing.
Any questions from council before we start the hearing? Oh, Councilmember Gupta.
So the reduction in the Issaquah School District fees was not a decision, it's a product of the formula based on growth projections.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The one comment I will make, I wish you would have shown the slides showing the projections, the downward projections of each of the school districts, which is dramatic over the next several years.
Do you have this?
It's in our packet.
Yeah, they are included with each of the,
You have them here.
It's not a slide in the presentation,
Right.
it's in the agenda bill.
Yeah,
yes.
it's in the packet.
Yep, each of the capital facilities plans within the packet for each of the districts includes enrollment forecasts. Now, keep in mind, these are district-wide, so they're not just for Sammamish. However, generally speaking, the Lake Washington and the Issaquah district are aging out, if you will. However, the Snoqualmie Valley district still has strong attendance, which is reflected in its need for capital facilities. It does still maintain a fairly high impact fee in order to help fund facilities needed for growth.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh, and Deputy Mayor Lamb.
Could you give us an update on where the new Issaquah High School, their permit is in the system?
So they have permits from the city of Issaquah. They are able to move forward with construction of their new proposed campus. However, they are in the process of making decisions about what actually to move forward with. We could ask, we do check in periodically with them on that. The last I had heard was that they were planning to proceed with a limited campus, I believe a high school option, and to preserve or reserve the balance of the site that would enable them to build out the remainder of the facilities over time if needed. However, they would be doing the full frontage improvements along the city's right-of-way that would support the school, the entire build-out. They would not wait to do some of the improvements and then incrementally add to those, that they would be doing the entire improvement. However, I always want to caveat that with this is an iterative process with them, that they are, they have their own school board, that they have their own staff. They're working with the city of Issaquah through permitting issues. So we don't always know until they mobilize with a pre-construction meeting. We are working on right-of-way permitting with them. We do have a right-of-way permit on file. However, we have not heard from them for quite some time on that permit application. And we do check in periodically, and I will happily check in again tomorrow and ask them what the status is.
And I have one quick clarifying question just for myself too, and I'd like to understand if they do move forward with this limited version of high school, can you just give me a ballpark of timing? Like, is this a 2-year project and they're done? In general, can you even guess?
My guess is that would be about 2 to 3 years. There's a lot of dirt that needs to be moved, lots of walls that need to be built, lots of infrastructure that needs to be brought in. On a more limited campus, they could probably get through it in 18 months, like they did with the new school, the new elementary school they built. It was built pretty quickly. However, this being a bit more complicated, I think there's more earth moving that needs to occur, and it does require more elaborate road improvements that goes along with the project.
Thank you. That just helps me try to understand just the progression of things. My understanding is there are about 1,000 students, oversubscribed for where they want to be, but given the fact it could take a couple of years for something to happen, they'll be outside that window, potentially.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to ask them what their construction schedule looks like. And I don't have access to how they move their students around, given that the district is quite large, and it includes, Bellevue and parts of Newcastle and Issaquah. It is a fairly large district, and they do move kids around between schools quite a bit in order to make space.
Thank you. That's very helpful. If there's no other clarifying questions, I'll open the public hearing for all three. Is there any public comment?
Just checking online, those who have pre-registered to provide online public comment, please raise your hand if you'd like to comment at this time. It looks like no.
Okay, and there's no comment in the room. I'll close the public hearing. There we go. And is there a motion to approve the ordinance for all three?
Mayor, I believe you need to take them one at a time to actually
that's
vote
right.
on
I'm
the
so sorry.
ordinances.
You're
I have
right,
3
right.
slides.
Issaquah School District. Is there a motion for the Issaquah School District?
I can do it.
Oh, we all have our hands up.
Oh,
We're waiting.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Stewart, she had her hand up first. And if Councilmember O'Farrell could do the next one, that would be great.
Perfect. I was just waiting for the mayor. Move to approve ordinance 02025-589, adopting by reference the Issaquah School District's 6-year capital facilities plan and setting the district's 2026 school impact fees to 0, actually.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Move to adopt ordinance 02025-590, adopting by the reference the Lake Washington School District's 6-year capital facilities plan and setting the district's 2026 school impact fees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you want to speak to the motion?
No.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And if Councilmember Clark could do the next one.
I move to approve ordinance 2025-591, adopting by reference the Snoqualmie Valley School District 6-year capital facilities plan and setting the district's 2026 school impact fees.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will also check in with the Issaquah School District tomorrow and work on an update as soon as I hear back from them.
That's helpful. And they're not on a time. They're not on the clock with that permit, are they?
That right-of-way permits do not have expirations like building permits do, and because we are not issuing a building permit, that's not going to be an issue for them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
And thank you to Jackie for orchestrating this whole thing. It can be quite a bit of work on the back end.
Thank you.
We are now moving to, let's see, oh gosh, which public hearing is this? Oh, I think it's the mid-buy. Okay, we are now to the public hearing for the 2025-26 mid-biennium budget hearing with Vicki Carlson.
Good evening, thank you. So the mid-buy was discussed in October at both the work plan meeting updates meetings, as well as a presentation on November 5th. I don't have any new information, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there something on the screen? Well, I'm going to open the public hearing unless there's a question.
Yeah, so Mayor, if I may recall that these 3 items, we've held the public hearings
Oh, it's not
open
closing the public
since 2 weeks ago from for the first meeting. So
Okay.
these are currently open. I think if you want to have discussion before you ask if there's any more public comment, then you could close the hearing and council could prospectively take action at that
Okay,
point.
is there any discussion at this point? Any questions, clarifying questions? Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I think since we do still have a public hearing, do we have a slide to at least show what the changes are so people are aware? Or can we at least read through what?
I did not have a presentation planned tonight, but if you give me a couple minutes, I could dig for the one from when we did the public hearing, when we opened the public hearing.
Yeah, I just think since there is a public hearing, it's probably hard for people to remember what the overarching changes were.
Sure. Maybe just a couple minutes here to find it.
Yeah, I can try to fill, I have some notes, but overall, we're implementing, since the utility tax is there, we're increasing the revenues by $11 million per year. With the utility tax, we're increasing revenues from insurance that we got for Beaver Lake Pavilion. We're increasing revenue for some money that we got from the bomb cyclone. And there was something else. We were decreasing revenue for the terminated lease from Central Washington University.
Right.
And then I think there's also the affordable housing fee in lieu that will be an add and a subtraction. So we'll add the revenue and then we'll add an expense. So that's offsetting, if I recall correctly. That's pretty good from memory, don't you think?
That's actually...
I wasn't even looking at my notes. That was all just from my head. So
That's
Vicki,
amazing.
check me if I got any of that wrong. But I know people don't think we go through the budget line item by line item, but I do.
Appreciate that, Councilmember. Mayor, if I may, while the finance director is trying to find that presentation, one thing that you could do is if there's any other comments on either the CIP or the property tax levy, we could go through those first. I know there's a short presentation on the CIP, but since these were sort of all done at the same time, they're all technically open. So if you wanted to hear any public comment.
How close are we, Vicki?
I'm trying to mute.
Do you need some time?
It says I'm muted.
Well, I do not have comments on the other two or this one.
Well, we could take on the property tax levy right now.
I have a question, but it's for
Yeah.
Vicki, so I don't want to disrupt her thought
Right.
process
Well,
there.
looks like we got it.
Or we get off mute.
Excellent.
Okay, testing, make sure I'm still on mute here. Okay, so this is the mid-by adjustments and amendments. Let me go ahead and start the presentation here. Slideshow. There we go. Okay, so this was a presentation from November 5th. And I'll just run through this really quickly because there were a few slides here. So there are two things included in this resolution or ordinance, the amendments, which do change the budget. An example of that is adding the utility tax. And we do have a list of adjustments that are not changing the budget itself, but are simply put there for transparency purposes. This is the slide that Councilmember Stewart referred to before. This is the list of amendments for the general fund. There's several there. We are decreasing the existing fund balance or the beginning fund balance to true up to actuals, adding the utility tax revenue of $11 million, amending the fire permit revenue, which increased the revenue by just under $10,000, and council did approve the new fee schedule earlier tonight on consent, removing the remainder of the CWU lease, which was a decrease in revenue of about $750,000. Adding in the bomb cyclone revenue grant from the state, $320,000 split partially between the general fund and partially between the surface water operations fund. We do expect an insurance reimbursement coming through for the Beaver Lake Pavilion that was damaged during the bomb cyclone. Insurance revenues would be approximately $105,000 because we do have a $5,000 deductible. And then adding in the affordable housing in lieu revenue, which is transferred to the agency that handles that. That is revenue neutral. So bringing in $1.1 million and then transferring $1.1 million. And then on this page is a list of adjustments to the general fund, again, not included in the ordinance itself, but for transparency purposes, we have savings throughout the general fund to cover these other projects that are on the list.
So my question is that I know we don't usually do true-ups until after the biennium, and it's usually like a quarter after the biennium, but we are showing that we will be coming in, I think, a little bit higher in terms of revenue and quite a bit lower in terms of expenses to the tune of almost $2.5 million. And so I'm wondering how we can sort of keep track of that, because I think that's important as we're looking ahead, right? I mean, I think that's part of, why I thought it was worth having a discussion further about the budget and whether or not we needed the full utility tax, because if we're already going to be $2.5 million ahead, and that's just as of the end of September, and if those trajectories continue, I'm just curious how we can account for that so that we, again, aren't over collecting revenues that are not needed.
So we do plan to continue our updates to council on a quarterly basis. Our next one is due next month, which will be through September of 2025. And again, this is a biennial budget, right? So we manage the budgeted to 2 years, not an annual budget. And you're right, Councilmember Stewart, we did have building revenues come in higher than expected the first part of the year. We have no guarantees that that's going to continue for the rest of the biennium. We don't know what the utility tax is actually going to generate. We did some estimates during when we brought all this information forward to council for adoption, but it was based on an estimates. So until we actually start bringing it in, we don't know how much revenue it's actually going to generate. And the salary savings and other savings throughout the budget are being used to accomplish these projects on this list. These are needed items that came up after the budget was adopted, so they were not included when the budget was brought forward to council last year for adoption.
What about the interest revenue? Because that, I think we can say, like, we're only, not even halfway through the budget. I think we're 37.5% of the way through the budget, and we've already collected almost 90% of our anticipated interest expense. And interest rates are going down much slower than I think we thought they would. So do we ever kind of accrue that revenue in advance, like as it comes, so that we don't just have that stacking up?
We account for it, and it goes into existing fund balance to be allocated to the next budget process. Okay. And we do watch interest earnings. And you're right, interest earnings are not coming down quite as fast as we had expected, but they are coming down. And we have limited items that we can actually invest our funds in. Most of them are invested through the state program in municipal bonds, which do not carry a higher interest rate. Those interest rates don't match necessarily to what the market is doing. We can't invest in stocks and bonds. Right. We can't invest in, and LGIP, which is where a lot of our funds are, that's also the state pool. That interest rate it is a moving target. Mm-hmm. And as we spend on our fund balance, we have less funds available for investing.
Sure. But like we said, we're spending slower, interest rates are higher, so that revenue is definitely going to come in higher than we anticipated, barring some, tragedy. But okay. I just think that's something we need to keep track of, because it is, even in the last biennium, it was a lot more money than we thought it would be.
Any other questions from council on this, clarifying questions? And I'm assuming that there is no public comment?
It looks like we do have an online public comment.
Hi, this is Mary Wichter. I just wanted to speak briefly on one thing. I see the Project Elephant, which is the city used to pay somebody, I think Iron Mountain, but might not be that, to hold all the records in boxes and have to send them on site when they need them. I believe that contract was ended, which allowed less to be paid out. I believe they're using some of the storage classrooms, or some of the classrooms as storage in the Central Washington University former site, or the Building 120. And the reason I'm asking about it is I think just those changes with the terminating the contract and moving it over had a cost. But I also read in one of the meetings in the last 3 months that the records are actually getting scanned, so they're getting digitized. So it is my impression that the records won't be taking multiple classrooms in the 120 building, that they would actually get scanned online. And I don't know if there's a cost for that or if there's a time frame for that, but it'd be interesting to know since so many people are interested in the 120 building. Thank you.
Thank you. If that's the end of public comment?
That's all for online public comment.
Thank you. I'm going to close this hearing. The hearing is closed. And council, if you have questions, now is the time. If not, I'll be looking for a motion.
I move that we approve the proposed amendments to the 25-26 mid-buy budget.
Second? Been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we go now to the capital improvement plan, I believe. The 2026-2031 capital improvement plan with Vicki Carlson.
And I do have a quick presentation. We just need to get it queued up here.
Thank you.
And while this is getting queued up, if I could take the liberty of just adding one comment to the previous discussion that I should have commented on earlier, but I was caught a little off guard. So without the utility tax, the budget as drafted, without that, it was a $14 million drawdown in existing fund balance. Even with the utility tax, we're still drawing down fund balance by about $3.5 million. So there is still a drawdown. So even if other revenues come in higher, we still have a deficit.
Thank you. And I appreciate that update because I think it's really important to get that out there and documented. Appreciate that.
Okay, so I do have just a quick presentation on the 2026 to 2031 capital improvement document, or CIP. So just to give you an idea of what is in this document and why we have this, it is intended to be a comprehensive multi-year plan of proposed capital projects that encompasses all of our functional areas in the city. The projects that are included in the documents are one that balance the needs between the city's needs against our financial capabilities and limitations on our revenue sources, and I will touch on the revenue sources in the next couple slides. Also taken into consideration on the projects that go into the CIP are the goals that we have in the policies, our strategic plans, and if a project has risen to the top of the list due to urgency, something broke as an example. And we do update the document annually to reflect changes in these needs and priorities. And on the slide at the bottom are just some of the other plans that are adopted by council that inform the projects that go into this comprehensive document. So included in the document is you read through it. It is a very lengthy document. It is only the second one the city has produced, but we have tried to make it as comprehensive as possible, and there's always room for improvement. So when you see the one coming forward next year, we'll have even more information. But for now, the document includes an introduction and overview of what the CIP document is. We have a narrative on the funds that are included in the document, how the CIP projects are funded. We do have a capital improvement summary that lists all funds and how it's funded, just a one-page summary, and I'll show that on a couple slides later. Each project page that's in there includes a project scoped, planned expenditures by year, how it's funded, and we've tried to document the changes from the prior CIP document on each project. So if a project was included last year, you can see at a very high level what the changes were made to that project in the new document. And just as a reminder, this is a 6-year document, but only 2026 is adopted by the budget. The other 5 years are planning purposes only. Next year is a budget process, and so you'll have an opportunity to update the projects that are in the CIP document next year through the budget process and also the budget amendment process. So included in the capital improvement program are all of our capital funds, as well as our internal service funds, the fleet fund, and our technology fund, as well as our surface water, which is an enterprise fund. Typically, when you look through CIP documents from other cities, they don't include the equipment rental or technology, but we've tried to make this as comprehensive as possible so you see the full needs of the city going forward for 6 years. Most of the CIP projects are funded. On the left-hand side, you will see it's restricted revenue sources, and these restrictions are from external sources. These are not restrictions that we put on ourselves. They're either restrictions from the state level, or if it's a grant from the granting agency, they are required to be used for only certain things like capital projects. So we can't take, for an example, the impact fees and use that to pay for our general operations. They have to be used for specific purposes only. The right side of the screen has the two unrestricted revenue sources, which again are interest earnings and then any transfers from the general fund. Those two would be unrestricted and can be diverted to other projects as needed. On this slide is a very high-level summary. It lists fund by fund. We have an estimate for 2025, what is currently budgeted for 2026, and you can see the second to bottom line, the black line. The budget for 2026 is $45 million. Moving over, you see the proposed plans for each of the next 5 years. The total CIP plan is $167 million for the 6 years. And just as a reference point, the CIP document that was adopted last year for 2025 through 2030, it was $161 million in total plan projects. So a little bit of a change. Some new projects that were included that were, we reviewed that through the work plan updates, as well as some cost increases, some of the projects. And then I just wanted to include a snip of one project as an example. So as you read through this document, you know what's in each project page. So on the top left, it gives you the project itself. On the right-hand side at the very top, there's a summary of what the project is. Kind of in the middle, there's the justification of why the project is necessary and what the benefits are to the community. And then the bottom section, the top part of the chart shows the expenditures in major category, how much of it is study planning, design, land or right of way, and then construction cost. And we have that allocated out through the years of the life of the project to complete it. And then the bottom section is the funding sources. Again, this is really small. I only threw this in there for illustrative purposes, but you'll note in the chart, you'll see some numbers in black and some numbers in blue. The numbers in blue are where we tried to highlight a change from the prior document. And at the very bottom, you'll see in blue, construction cost increased. This is an example of one of the changes that we tried to note, again, on a high level of what changed from the prior year to the current document. And that is all I have for the presentation for the CIP. Happy to answer any questions or clarifying comments.
Any clarifying questions at this time from council? If not, I'll move to public comment. Is there any public comment in the room or online?
I have a question.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, if you can go back to the summary of the total. One of the things I wasn't sure of, the slide 6, I think it is.
Yeah, slide 6, one before. That one.
There we go. So, it's total expenditures excluding. Okay, that's what I was getting confused on. I'm like,
yeah, I apologize. I should have explained that. So the first several lines are the governmental side of the house. And then we have the surface water capital fund, which we listed separately because it's funded differently.
Right.
It's part of the utility.
Okay, great. Yeah, I thought that was an important distinction to call out, is that, again, we have surface water fees that fund both the capital fund and the operations fund for surface water. And so that, correct, while it's still revenue that we take in and money we spend, it is, again, segregated from other things. And again, people will see that there is quite a bit that comes from the general fund, and that's where we use our fund balances to often fund some of these projects. I know there's discussion of bonding, which is something I've been trying to do for 8 years. It may or may not be the best time for us to move forward with that, but in order for us to do that, we have to have extra revenue in order to do that, or we have to put out a separate levy for the bonds. So that's why for years now we've been funding our capital projects from the general fund. So thanks for, I don't know why when I read that on my screen I didn't get the excluding part and I was just confused. Thanks.
Any other questions, council? If not, any comment online?
Those who have pre-registered, please raise your hand if you'd like to provide online comment. Okay, no online comment.
No online comment, then I'm closing this hearing. And I'll be looking for a motion to accept this resolution to adopt the 2026-2031 CIP?
I moved. Sorry. Would you like me to do it?
You got it, Councilmember O'Farrell.
I move to adopt the 2026-2031 capital improvement plan as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion? Anyone? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And finally, for public hearings, we have the 2026 property tax levy. Is there anything you're going to show here?
Again, I had not planned on it, but given the last one, I'm happy to do a quick vocal presentation. If you just give me just a second to get to the agenda item. So the ordinance that's in front of you tonight is asking for levying the property taxes for 2026, and it does include the 1% increase. And I'm just looking for that dollar amount so that I have it in front of me. So new construction is approximately $147,000. We have a re-levy of a prior year tax levy of $61,000, and somewhere in this agenda bill is the 1% amount. $286,000 is the 1%.
Thank you. Are there questions from clarifying questions from council? If not, I will go to online or in the room comment.
We do have an online comment.
Thank you.
Hello again, this is Mary Wichter. I just want to emphasize Chris Giannini from the Finance Department, who's been with the city a long time. She started giving the presentations on the property tax increases a while back. And I remember that the maximum that the city or the council can increase it is 1% per year. And I know some of the legislatures were going to try to see if they could do things to get it to be 2 or 3%, but I haven't heard of any actual action in that way. So it sounds like 1%, and people are like, well, my taxes are really high. I don't want them to go up. But what happens is if everybody in the city, if their house is assessed value, if the assessed value goes up, the tax actually goes down. And if the assessed value goes down, the tax can go up because they can't go up more. And I remember a few years ago, Chris Giannini had presented that it was about $300,000 to the city. And as was just read by the current finance manager, I think it's 280 something thousand. So with everybody paying 1% more, the city doesn't even get $300,000 per year. So I think it's just important to emphasize that because people hear about it and they don't want their taxes to go higher, but it doesn't really go up that amount in a large amount, and it also isn't a terribly large amount to the city, so I'm glad they take it every year. Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no more online comments, then I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion on the, sorry? Anything? Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I actually move that we bank the 1% property tax amount to next for future.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. And again, the reason that I move to do that is that right now, while Vicki did point out that we could have a drawdown based on our current projections, that's probably not going to happen. We're already $2.5 million ahead as of the end of September. Our revenues, our sales tax revenues are quite a bit higher. I believe property tax revenues usually come in pretty spot on. We have a significant number of vacancies, so even though we have accounted for in our budget to remove a certain amount for payroll because of vacancies, we're actually coming in $500,000 under as of 3/4 of the year through. So I don't actually believe we're going to have a drawdown, and given the pushback and the fact that it's true, cost of living is up, housing prices are up, food prices are up, energy prices are up and we're going to implement a 6% utility tax. I don't believe we need this additional revenue at the time. We can bank the capacity and we can take it next year if needed.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we will go to a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
For banking, aye.
For banking,
For banking.
yes. For banking, 1%.
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. And we will move now to unfinished business, which includes financial policies. Vicki Carlson is still in the hot seat.
So again, I don't have a formal presentation prepared for those. We reviewed those in depth back in October as well as in November. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Are there questions, council? If not, we can move right to, I believe we need just a motion to approve the financial policies. Isn't that correct?
It's be adopted via resolution.
Oh, adopting the resolution, sorry.
Okay.
Would someone like to make that motion for the resolution? If they have it in front of them.
I'll make it. I adopt a resolution for the city of Sammamish adopting the general financial policies.
Second.
First, it's moved and seconded. Sorry, thank you. Would you like to speak to that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. We're now moving to the bike and pedestrian mobility plan with Audrey and Andrew and Lindsay.
Hold tight for just a moment, Mayor and Council, if you would. She might have stepped out of the room for a moment.
Council is going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Be back at 8:41. I believe we're back. Madam City Clerk, are we good to go? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council. This evening, we bring you the final bike and pedestrian mobility plan for your consideration to adopt. This is the 7th public meeting, including all 3 commission presentations. That does not include the 2 open houses that we had with the community. We very much value the community's input along the way in putting together this plan. This plan will be an integral part of our Transportation Master Plan update going forward. Joining me this evening is Andrew Spiliotis, our Senior Transportation Planner, and has been a critical person working on this project. It just worked. It did work. Okay. We have a very brief presentation for you this evening. At the end of the presentation, you'll find a motion for you to consider to adopt the plan. Just as a reminder, these are the main components that the plan was set the goals that were created for the plan, and something that we were able to create along the way as we developed the plan. So the first is establishing some facility types for our pedestrian and bicyclist comfort level of standards. This is a guideline. This is something that we have to have in place for the GMA and the Puget Sound Regional Council. This is something that is in our Transportation Master Plan. These facility types help us create consistency as we're set to update our public works standards. The second was creating a framework tailored to evaluate bike and pedestrian projects. That was created through this plan as well, in addition to a list of potential bike and pedestrian projects that will be considered in next year's transportation citywide and capital improvement plan, or CIP. In addition, with this year's Transportation Master Plan update, we will be creating a 12-year constrained list, so we have an idea of what exactly we're building 8 years from now. In addition, some of these projects may be, depending on how they score, incorporated into our 20-year unconstrained project list that also lives in the Transportation Master Plan. Finally, this plan created really important policies around complete streets, bike and pedestrian facility types, as I mentioned previously, e-bikes, and crosswalks. Summary of the schedule. We started about this time last year, so very happy to present the final plan to you this evening. Thank you again for all the comments that we heard during the public hearing. We have proposed 4 modifications to the plan. You'll find those in the agenda packet. I'll reference the page numbers as I go through the slides. First was a minor modification to some of the maps that are found throughout the plan, just ending the Hollyway Corridor study at the northern limits of the city. We had a lot of feedback about these tables, so we created 2 tables so they are a little bit easier to read. The first table simply states what is existing and in place. The second table highlights the recommendation that this plan is recommending for policy changes going forward. Everything that is new and recommended in this plan is in bold and highlighted font for consideration. Please note that there are 2 categories that we've talked quite a bit about. The first is allowing e-scooters on sidewalks, and the second is allowing Class 3 e-bikes in bike facilities with a limitation of 15 miles per hour. The third modification to the plan, we added text into the plan. This is something that we're planning on doing with our Transportation Master Plan update in 2026, but it is clearly noted in the plan, this bike and pedestrian mobility plan as well, that this work will continue throughout next year. We'll propose performance metrics for City Council's consideration next year as we move forward with that Transportation Master Plan update. And finally, we had a lot of conversations about how we can collaborate with our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, our PROS plan. So we have had many conversations. We collaborate and coordinate often with our Parks Department. These 2 plans are meant to talk to each other, but they have separate purposes. But we did add some clarifying text walking through some specific areas that we're planning to explore further again as we develop those project lists. And finally, before you, we do have a recommended motion for your consideration. Thank you.
Councilmember Gupta.
If there are no questions, I will make the motion. I move to adopt the Bike and Pedestrian Mobility Plan via resolution as presented by staff.
Second. It's been first and seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I'm really excited by this plan. This is a real need in Sammamish. When I first got on the Parks Commission, I think our city had a walk score of 13 out of 100. I don't know that we've definitely made some improvements, but I know there's a lot of work yet to be done. I think this is a great step in the right direction, especially in connecting our schools and our shopping centers to our housing. A couple of things I would like to see in the future as this plan and our TMP evolves. I'd love to see us approach a Vision Zero goal in accordance with the state guidelines, and I would love to do more work on connecting our neighborhoods, connecting those cul-de-sacs. I know that's a whole different kettle of fish. There's a lot of difficulty there, but I think that's the future for Sammamish. Yeah, thank you. And thank you to staff for all this work.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah. Gosh, this plan I think is just so important. We've seen in other communities, there's a lot of rallying around walking and biking to school. We know that some of our biggest choke points are around our schools, and yet we don't have adequate facilities for walking and biking almost anywhere in our city, unfortunately. We have pockets, right, but they fail to connect. So this is just such a critical plan, those connections. And I know there are other priorities from Councilmember Treen around wildlife corridors, but if we have these kinds of bike and pedestrian corridors, certainly the wild animals can use them too. My hesitation here is that I don't feel like we got some of the really critical items addressed. I feel like it's a good start, so I'm kind of debating whether we got to get something out there and get it started and then we can iterate on it, or do we need to make some of those critical improvements before we pass it. But I'm excited. I know that we went from nothing to this, which is a ginormous lift, right? I mean, because we haven't ever really had, I think James referred to something from back in 2005, but there's really been nothing in the interim, right? In addition to putting together a transportation master plan that we never had. So I really want to have one of these plans, but I guess I'm just not sure what the plan will be to be able to modify it as we go forward to make some of those critical updates and connections. So I'm just torn, but yeah. Thank you for all the work. Again, to go from nothing to here is just tremendous. Thanks.
Other council members? Deputy Mayor Lamb?
Yeah, thank you for all your work on this. I support this. I think it's a really good first step, and thank you for creating the map with the parks overlay on it, the parks trail. I think it's really helpful to see the overlay, to see all the different avenues and areas that will connect. I think it's really important for our residents to see that, and it's one step to truly making our city more multimodal. And the state is, pushing all cities to create multimodal plans, and this is just one more avenue in the right direction. So I understand Councilmember Stewart's concern, but I am hesitant. Well, rather, I am concerned that if this doesn't move forward, it won't move forward. So I strongly support this.
Anyone else? If not, I'll just add my 2 cents. I'm in the same camp, I think, with Deputy Mayor Lamb, is that it gives us a good start. It's something to work from and to learn from. And I know that you are adaptive and that you will pick the low-hanging fruit that is workable and tuck it into projects that are existing and pull the plan together in a way that actually brings something to fruition sooner rather than later, which I think is going to be important because showing progress on this, I believe Councilmember Stewart brought up the point that had to be measurable in terms of what we're able to accomplish with this, and it's going to be hard to do, but I do think that's a critical point, is that it does need to be measurable, and did we make a difference? Was this the right thing to do? But we all know that there are certain things, it's an automatic win. Any of the bus stops, improvements, that's a win. Absolutely a win. So anything like that is going to make a difference. So if there's no other comments or questions, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Council.
We're moving to council reports. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a very brief one. Believe it or not, we have made it into the third week of November, and next week is the Thanksgiving holiday break. Just a reminder for folks, City Hall will be closed on Thursday and Friday of next week in honorance of the Thanksgiving weekend. And so just want to say, as part of that, really thankful for all the community, for the council, for the incoming council members, and everyone who spends all their time being supportive of the community overall. And so just want to add that in there as we take a moment to take pause to give thanks, and the staff. So thank you so much, Mayor, and that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Other council reports? Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, so we had a pretty big Eastside Fire and Rescue meeting this past week. We were able to ratify the contract for the new fire chief. Which was thank you to the mayor who participated in that committee. I know that was a bit of mountain. There was a large valley between where the board and where the new chief started. And I am really happy to report that everyone came out exceedingly happy. So Chief Aho is very pleased with the outcome. The board is pleased with the outcome. We were also able to ratify the agreement with the union. And that was also a huge mountain. So that took almost 2 years. It went to mediation. And again, the vote in the union was, I don't know if I'm going to get this right. I think it was 197-3. So it was approved. And I think that was almost 90% participation in the vote. So it was overwhelmingly approved by the union members. And I'm proud to say, as the board, that we were able to absorb those costs. So there will be no detrimental impact to any of the funds in EFR, and there will be no increases to any of the contributions from the members. So that was huge. We did add a little bit in the budget because we knew it would be higher, and we had some additional revenues from some of our contract cities. So I think that was a win-win-win for everyone, and a lot of work culminating at the end of a lot of work as we look ahead at the transition. So I'm super excited by that. I think the EFR organization, while we will be very sad to lose Chief Lane, we're all very excited about Chief Aho and the period ahead. So I just thought that would be good news for everyone. Thanks.
Others? Oh, Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to let Council know on Thursday I have RIA 8 Salmon Recovery Council meeting. A number of things on the agenda which we'll send out to all of you, but I just thought it was noteworthy that we're going to hear a presentation from Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust on their recently completed project to restore the lower section of the Issaquah Creek through the Lake Washington State Park. We had an opportunity to walk that in the late spring of this year, I believe it was, or early summer, to see their work as it was happening. It was very interesting. They were actually using trees that had come down, I believe it was from I don't think it was Marysville, but it was probably Everett. Trees that had come down during the bomb cyclone were actually being used to restore habitat in the Issaquah Creek. So it was really interesting to see that kind of reuse and repurposing of our trees in such a natural way. So anyway, we'll get an update on that on Thursday. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lamb.
I have a solid waste advisory committee meeting on Friday. I have a Board of Health meeting on Thursday, and I sent out the agenda. Last Friday, I attended the regional utility rate summit in SeaTac. This was a summit that gathered the utilities, the different water districts, wastewater, Seattle Public Utilities, and it was a summit to have a conversation and to brainstorm ideas on how to keep our utilities rates affordable. As we know, our utility rates keep rising, and this is not just Sammamish, this is all across King County, and these increases are being driven by aging infrastructure and regulatory requirements. So it was really a time for bringing all stakeholders together to figure out how we can just protect affordability. And it was a great conversation, and I'm hopeful that there will be some ideas that will move forward and how we can lean into our legislators to change some of the regulatory frameworks.
Thank you. Councilmember Treen.
Yeah, so the ILA management for the kokanee salmon meetings over the last week went well, and we got approval from that committee to change our budget and absorb the cost for putting in brooding containers at Wally's property for the fish due to the lack of infrastructure and safety at the fishery, at the Issaquah hatchery. So that's something that'll come forward next year, budget time. There'll probably be we'll see. It's a wait and see as to what costs it's going to take to actually do a permanent facility or restore the Issaquah hatchery. The second one was the Eastside Transportation Partnership meeting on Friday, went really well, and then what's her name sent out all the information to the council. And then tomorrow is the GMPC caucus that I have at 3, and then we'll have the actual meeting at 4. And yeah, it was nice to serve on that board. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a regional transit committee meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. The caucus is going to be discussing just the motion 16783, which King County voted on, to come up with a task force and implementation plan for safety on transit. So this is in response directly to the fatal attack on Metro operator Sean Yim, as well as other assaults that have happened to passengers and drivers. So it's been a concerted effort by all transit agencies to really come up with a plan that is actionable and create a safety plan for everyone connected with transit so that we can continue to see the increases in ridership, which has really blossomed. So it's not back to pre-pandemic, but in some locations, it's beyond pre-pandemic in terms of usage. So the safety components are really important, and the plan is a solid plan. You may have been on a bus. I'd like to think that you've been on a bus. And you've seen the shields around the drivers now. That is specifically because of the Sean Yim incident that was so tragic and took his life. So the drivers are kind of mixed on it because it separates them from their passengers, and they really like having contact with their public. But it's safety. It's safer. So they just continue to work on anything that they can to make sure that the public feels safe enough to ride. And that's all I have. And if that's the case, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and good night.
Good night.